The Series X comes out and pushes to get FSR 4.1 support so they can maintain 60, and then the PS5 base doesn't get anything to make it able to do that. That'd be a pretty big loss. Welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. I am your host, Tom, and today's lead sponsors are FlexiSpot. Check out the link below to get a special offer on one of their new chairs. CDkeyoffer.com, where you can get Windows 11 Professional for just $24, and the 6X7400 Gen 4 NVMe SSD. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm fine. Can't complain. It's starting to feel like summer down here, I have to say, but there was a nice breeze out there. So, like I said, can't complain. Nice weekend.
I guess I was just telling you this right before. Nothing really notable, but we were getting a nice breeze up here in Madison today in the form of a tornado, I guess, because this is like the fourth or fifth tornado warning we've gotten this month.
It seems like every other week there, I'm just seeing like apocalyptic, like 2012. Remember that stupid movie? Pictures
Great
of tornadoes
movie,
going insane all over Madison. Fantastic classic, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the tornado really did anything, but there was somebody got a pretty cool shot of a tornado forming over one of the big lakes in Madison, and it apparently dissipated almost immediately. But we've got a nice, cool picture from this one, at least.
Oh, Lake
Mendota, I think.
Lake Mendota.
Lake Mendota.
Ever since watching Task, me and Dan, just so everybody knows offline, say half of the like Sonoma County, Mendota. We have to try to have a Philly accent.
In the true MCU, the Mayor Cinematic Universe.
The Mayor Cinematic Universe, yes. Which I will say, very good show, Task, and Mayor of Easttown. But I'm not even sure what we're talking about anymore. Let me move on to the corrections. Frederick Thornton-Borger writes it and says, to correct Moore's Law is dead from Broken Silicon 360. You and Dan both lamented the fact that the Steam controller does not use Bluetooth or work outside of Steam. The latter is due to the Steam controller not supporting X input by necessity, as X input is not flexible enough to allow for the trackpads, and the former is actually simply not true. The Steam controller can support Bluetooth just fine, though the puck provides better latency, especially with multiple controllers used simultaneously. So Carbon Cry has a note here that the complaint was on the needless, complicated Bluetooth pairing and connection. Then the second complaint is on functionality and gatekeeping Steam. So, yeah, I mean, I think Carbon Cry rushes to the rescue of me and your stance a little bit here with some corrections to the correction. But I do think that's a very valid correction from Frederick that I didn't really... It is more proprietary than a standard controller, but maybe it's not quite as much so as we thought, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think we were more talking about like functionality being gate kept on the controller, not that it just straight up doesn't work if you're not using Steam. But
yeah, because it makes you wonder, like, is there some work they could have done to make it work with X input somehow, like coding it to use some other inputs together to make the trackpads work? I don't know. I mean, they made it work with one much worse trackpad with the PlayStation 5. So could there have been a fallback option to have more compatibility? Maybe, I don't know. But we do stand corrected that anything that they're gatekeeping is for higher quality. It's not entirely arbitrary, I guess I would say.
Sure.
And I will also, did you see what happens when you drop a Steam controller?
No, I did not.
It makes the Wilhelm scream.
That's kind of fun. Although, depending on who you ask, or very annoying, because I know there are a lot of people that hate the Wilhelm scream because they think it's overused.
Yeah, I mean... Where do you fall on the Wilhelm scream? Because it kind of annoys me too, but I think, and I agree that it's overused, yet I think it can be used effectively if a scene in a movie is getting intentionally out of control. That's where you use it to make it funny. You don't have to just shoehorn it into every action movie, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's instances where I think it's funny, but like, yeah, with every tropey thing, there's bad and good uses of it, I suppose. Like, well, I would need to go and think about it because I've heard the Wilhelm scream so damn many times. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the problem with stuff like that is it can pull you out of the movie. So if it's not like an already somewhat lighthearted moment or light moment in a movie, maybe don't use it.
Yeah. I remember in Inglourious Bastards, it was used during the movie they filmed with the German guy shooting from the tower. And I think in that use, perfect. You know,
because
that's
Tarantino
surprise nailed it, but like it is overused. It should not be in everything.
Yeah. Well, wait, what Tarantino used in homage effectively? What?
Yeah, I know. Unlike him. But speaking of things that are unlike people, let us move to a smart decision being made by AMD, which is very much so unlike them. I
don't know how that segue got real.
Story number one. Jack Wang, AMD, SVD, and GM Compute and Graphics Group. Quoting here, my team and I have been working hard to evolve AMD FSR 4 and bring it to more cards. We power over 1 billion gaming devices worldwide. It's a responsibility that we care deeply about. This July, RDNA 3 players will experience FSR Scaling 4.1, delivering sharper visuals and smoother gameplay than ever before. And for our RDNA 2 players, we have something exciting coming in early 2027. FSR Upscaling 4.1 will also be coming to your cards as well. And so, yep, AMD finally did the thing they obviously should have announced much earlier. FSR 4.1 is coming to older Radeon cards. AMD has had INT8 and actually FP16 paths in their upscaler code for some time, with both options accessible via DLL swaps or OptiScaler. Now, though, such methods will become obsolete, and AMD will take responsibility to make sure FSR 4 INT8 runs well and bug-free in supported games, which is why it is important they have direct support, not just letting you hack it in. We still have some early testing thanks to these unofficial paths as well. Obviously, look, the performance uplift is not going to be as significant with FSR 4 on these older architectures as it has been for RDNA 4 products, but results like Digital Foundry's Steam Deck testing, where FSR 4 occasionally reached around FSR 3 performance uplifts with notably higher visual quality, are good omens, particularly for RDNA 3.5 APUs, as that they really need FSR 4 the most as they age. And by the way, I did leak that is coming. I know that AMD's been weird and not saying FSR RDNA 3.5 directly, but I do have sources directly telling me, no, it will come to RDNA 3.5 FSR 4, that is. It's just probably going to come after it comes to RDNA 3 and probably before it comes to RDNA 2. At least that's my understanding. Let's see here. However, the eventual support for RDNA 2 is honestly pretty surprising, considering at least what my sources told me and how AMD was kind of publicly just saying they weren't going to do it a few months ago. And this is significant, as it should finally bring Xbox a counter to Sony's PSSR. Well, the large, wide, and compute-first GPU of the Xbox Series X was not a winning choice for gamers so far. The Microsoft console finally can actually make use of its extra compute that the PS5 does not have, as it was stripped out to save money and I think streamline the rendering and programming as well. I have a chart that we can put on, the Gerard can put on screen here, where I show the difference in performance. Now, a part of this chart is just highlighting how much a lot of these products will not do FSR 4 or PSSR 2, if you will, as well as FSR 4 as RDNA 4 or PS5 Pro, as even the PS5 Pro is 300 tops of INT8, and the 7900 XTX is 123. So it's a lot less. The 6900 XT is 92. Strix Halo has 55, which is 10% more than the Series X. Of course, if they can get it to run on Strix Halo, that means the Series X should be able to do it, which I think is pretty exciting. But let me continue here back to the write-up. But yeah, so anyways, the PS5, though, only has 22 tops, and that's if they do an FP16 fallback, which FSR 4 can do, apparently. But it's just worth pointing out that the PS5 is probably around Series S performance in FSR 4 acceleration, much weaker than Xbox Series X. I don't know what that really means, but if I had to guess, it could mean the Series X is running FSR 4 in balanced mode, struggles a little to do quality mode because it's not RDNA 4 or the PS5 Pro, but then you might have to do performance mode for the PS5 to get a similar, I don't know, something like that. You see what I mean? Let me see here. Meanwhile, PS5 could be left behind, though, as Sony decided not to include native INT8 support to further optimize their silicon. Remember, the PS5 is fully capable of FP16, though, and AMD has an FP16 path in FSR 4. So a hypothetical PSSR Lite, though, could work. Could it work as well as FSR 4 on the Xbox Series X? No. But again, if the Steam Deck can get 30% more performance in some games with 6 INT8 tops, I find it hard to believe they couldn't at least achieve something better than what they're getting right now with FSR 2.2 apparently on PS5. And frankly, I think Sony should launch a PSSR Lite for PS5. If anything, just to get more PSSR adoption in general. I've heard multiple devs say that FSR 4 coming to RDNA 3 and especially 2 and all of AMD's 3.5 APUs means they want FSR 4 support now as soon as possible, because they're not just doing it to support like 5 million graphics cards instead of 100 or something, you know. And I don't quote me on those numbers. I haven't looked at what it would exactly be, but RDNA 4 is a fraction of the total market share, especially when you consider that doesn't include APUs yet. I assume the same would be true of PlayStation, where if you had a PSSR Lite come, maybe every dev would rush to make sure their game supports PSSR and PS5 Pro. I don't know. I just throwing that out there. Dan, I've been rambling, going back and forth from my own thoughts to the write-up. Please tie it all together, make this make sense, what I was trying to say.
I mean, I think it's good to see that, you know, or there's the potential that we can start seeing upscaling technologies in both Series X and the PS5 Pro. I mean, obviously, it would be awesome to see the PS5 get some form of PSSR support, but I don't know. That remains to be seen. And then I would just say overall with this story, it's a weird thing to call it good news almost, because to me, it's just like this is a kind of necessity that should have happened months ago. And you know, I can't say it's bad, but it's like, what the hell took you guys so long? Like, why wasn't there even, like, I don't know, some type of beta support that you could turn on in the driver or something like that? Like, the second that version of FSR 4 that could run on INT8 leaked, I think a clock was started for AMD to put out some type of support for FSR 4 on RDNA 3. And I mean, now that it's 6 months later or almost ish, like, it does feel a little like, I don't know, they feel a little late to the party here. Obviously, I'm not going to like say this is bad, especially with RDNA 3 being on a major part of their lineup for the foreseeable future, but I don't know. I guess AMD this is the classic AMD fashion. It feels like a lot of the time of just software gets there when it gets there, and it's oftentimes like a year or more later than it should be, in my opinion. But
yeah, and I want to be clear about this too, because I put out a video kind of outlining how I believe this all progressed, both from what we know publicly and also from what I could gather from my sources. You know, I basically portrayed it as AMD has surrendered FSR 4 to RDNA 3 and 2, because a lot of people would say, oh, but you know, you said it wasn't happening, or AMD said it was going to happen, so we always knew this would happen. I think that's complete nonsense. You know, I put out a year ago, actually, almost exactly, that AMD was actively working on it. And they were actively working on bringing FSR 4 to previous architectures. And then, I don't know, I think like earlier this year, I put out a leak where I wasn't told that they canceled it, everybody. I was told that they paused development. To anyone that doubts that development was paused, I mean, I'm just pulling up here something from Hardware Unboxed that's quoted by Tech Power Up that was from February, where they were told we have nothing to share at this time when it comes to bringing FSR 4 to previous architectures. That was just a few months ago, people, that AMD was saying in interviews or on the record to people like Hardware Unboxed, we have nothing to share about FSR 4 coming to previous architectures, or we think it would be tricky and we're not. It's like they were talking like it probably wasn't going to happen. And if just 3 months later it's happening, I guess 4 because, you know, or 5 because it's July, technically, like, No, like you agree. There's no way they say something like that in interviews, and they were definitely going to do it the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does lead to another question where I don't really have any speculation on this, but like, and I just think it needs to be out there in the air. Like, what was with AMD's reticence, do you think, to bring our FSR 4 support to RDNA 3? Because like RDNA 2, I get why that might have been delayed, and I'm honestly a little surprised that RDNA 2 is getting support as well.
You know, I'm not anymore because apparently it does it the same way. Like apparently they both just do INT8 anyways, so I don't see why it would be any harder. Although, as I'm going to get to into some of the reader mails for this one, I don't see why they couldn't bring it to even more. But the reticence, any reticence though, Dan, I think would be they're worried about supporting 2 different code paths and then having to make sure it works. Because I think people have to understand that like the difference between 3 different options, doing nothing, which is what they were doing, and just hoping modders make them set everyone happy, which didn't cut it. And it shouldn't have. I'm glad everyone got mad. The difference between that and experimental toggle is pretty large. The experimental toggle, every single update of Radeon, they now need to at least make sure the toggle doesn't break things, even if they don't care about artifacts. And then Sony's willing to do that with PSSR, right? Like they have an experimental toggle for all these games. So Sony was willing to, making AMD look stupid. But then the other tier of like officially supported, they're going to be working with developers on multiple code paths for how to get this to work now for years to come. And I think that's just a bit extra work. And I think it's worth the extra work. Again, not even because of dedicated cards, but for the love of God, because of their APUs that they will be selling with RDNA 3, even 2 still to this day, and 3.5 for the next 5 to 10 years. That means they had to do it the whole time. I just think they wanted to see if they could get away with not doing it. And I think it's this thing where AMD still sometimes acts like they are a startup or a lean, small company. They are not. They are massive. They're a huge company with tens of thousands of employees. They should be willing to hire more people to do this.
Yeah. And I don't know. The interesting thing to me, though, is like, okay, I get that it's more work to support multiple code paths. But when one of those code paths is like your most important product line, I think like it
most of your
stops
products
being an option. Like if we were talking about like I don't know if this was about like Cezanne or something. I mean maybe
like
it would
Vega.
Or Vega. Maybe I could
or if
see
they had
why
RDNA
they
4 for the past 3 years in
like,
APUs.
Yeah, I could see maybe why they would. I think the reticence would be more obvious, but when RDNA 3.5 is in so many devices right now, or in so many products right now, and so many products going into the future, like you kind of have to bring support to it, or I would say like what Gorgon Point having RDNA 3.5. If it doesn't get FSR 4.4 support is a massive blunder on their part. Like then Gorgon Point should have RDNA 4 or 4.5 or whatever, or whatever fork of RDNA they want to end up calling it. Like the fact that I mean, like we talked about, I think on the last Die Shrink, like they're going to be selling RDNA 3.5 APUs into like 2030 probably, or you need that support. And I guess I see what you're saying with the multiple code paths, but it just, that's what happens when your highest volume product in like the most competitive PC market, you're choosing to, or you're putting your last gen or last half gen architectures on it. Like, yeah, then you have to support it.
Yeah. So again, I don't know. I think they were worried about the complexity. There was some degree of like, well, we have to make sure if RDNA 4 runs it perfectly because that's what everyone's going to test it on. That's what we need for mindshare. And then they kind of were like, do we really need to finish it? And then I believe, and the argument I make in the video I put out last week is that gamers made this something they could not ignore, like at all. And what I highlight is every post on Twitter, YouTube, presumably other places as well, was just 90% when is FSR 4 coming to RDNA 3? And I think people see that and they might go, well, AMD doesn't really care. AI is where all the money is. Right. But like Lisa Su would post on Twitter, so happy to be, and I'm just making up something, so happy to be working with BMW on a new AI simulation for their sports cars. All of the comments, GPU wears FSR 4 on RDNA 3. That looks really unprofessional to AMD. And makes AMD look like they don't support their products well, even to their professional customers. And I believe they forced this. And in fact, you can see 2 weeks ago, I think the last video they did it is they showed off some new MSI Claw handhelds, and all of the comments were, and this can't run FSR 4. We're not buying it, you idiot. Like, and then they turned off comments on their YouTube channel. And I think what happened is they had basically finished it. They didn't want to support it though. And they paused the development, and then that's why, like, they're announcing, like, after acting like they weren't going to do it for months of radio silence, right after that, they're like, "Oh, it's coming," and actually, it's coming in like a month, like, and because I don't think they have to do that much work to finish it either. But do you agree? Like, I think they clearly were dragging their feet on this, and then gamers forced them to get it done.
Yeah, and just to like add on to that, I just looked this up, but. AMD with software support, it really does need to get their shit together at a certain point. Like we've talked about this multiple times, but I am, as a person that primarily games on an AMD graphics card, starting to find it more and more frustrating how slow they are to get software support for products they announce. Or, I mean, this isn't something they announced, I guess, but something that's so mind-numbingly obvious that they needed to support this for a year at this point. Like, AMD, get your shit together. Like, you made that big announcement, which I guess maybe this was just a nothing announcement 2 years ago now almost. The AMD's post, we're a software company now. Okay, prove it. Like, you at a certain point you need to prove it, because this stuff does make AMD look amateurish, and I think the value gap between Nvidia and AMD has been closing for some time now. But this type of stuff is why the value gap still to some extent exists. Like,
I mean, they would have closed it by now, I would almost say, if this was all done and handled well. I mean, because Nvidia keeps getting bad press for how unreliable their drivers are.
Yeah, AMD really could have capitalized on this right now. I think AMD's graphics is getting increasingly better and more comparable to Nvidia, but until this type of stuff, like, even if it just happened intermittently instead of it being a consistent problem with AMD's execution, I think they would be, I don't know. I think that value gap would be a lot harder to argue with. But the fact that AMD just consistently, or maybe I should just say Radeon at this point, consistently is so slow to software support, even after 2 years on from saying we're a software company now. I don't know. Like, I think AMD is always going to be viewed as a bargain brand, or Radeon will be, compared to Nvidia, until like they announce FSR 4 or FSR 5, and FSR 5 comes out, I don't know, a couple months later and is supported on multiple generations of hardware, or they make it clear what things are going to be supported on that new generation. Because like there's also just
because now when they announce RDNA 5, and they obviously announce FSR 5, they're going to go, wait, does this work on RDNA 3? And it really should, because as long as you have that INT8 code path, any upgrades should apply to that. It just won't run as well, right?
Yeah,
and everyone's going to ask.
And I think like this support being in limbo, like we've also talked about it with PlayStation and like first parties coming to PC. This uncertainty of in limbo, like when something is announced, is I think a lot more detrimental than just making a clear cutoff. Like if FSR 5 has some feature on RDNA 5 that it has to be kept on RDNA 5, just say it then and announce it, rather than have this like weird 6-month protracted period where people are speculating on if it's going to get support on previous generations.
This piece of content is sponsored by long-term sponsor of Moore's Law is Dead, FlexiSpot, and today they are specifically sponsoring their ErgoX premium chair. When tracking industry roadmaps or editing for hours, you really do need hardware that is comfortable to sit in for a long time, and that's why I've been using FlexiSpot for years now. Although it's not just me, my family uses them as well. My brother has FlexiSpot products, and now even my parents do right now when it comes to this chair, and it really is fully featured. It actively adjusts for height, seat depth, recline, and tilt, making it a solid fit for users, whether they're 5'1" or all the way up to around my height, 6'2". It features built-in back support with an adjustable lumbar system and a headrest to ease back and neck tensions. The 3D armrests are fully positional as well. You can move them up, down, forward, and sideways to lock in the exact right arm position for how you're sitting at your desk. And there's also a kickback footrest you can pull out when it's time to step back from monitors and relax. And, well, there's a reason me, my brother, my girlfriend, my parents are all part of the FlexiSpot family, and there's a reason I've been accepting sponsorships from them for a very long time, and that's because all of their products are always incredibly high quality. Genuinely, my parents messaged me multiple times and wouldn't stop talking about how much they love their new ErgoX chair. They love it almost as much as watching me and my brother talk on broken silicon, even if actually my parents probably rarely even know what we're really talking about anyways. But I guess that's cute, isn't it? But you know what would be even cuter? If you clicked on the link in the description to support the channel and you followed the links and directions to make sure that you also get the best price possible on this FlexiSpot product. As always, just clicking on the link in the description helps Moore's Law is Dead a ton, and it costs you nothing. But of course, purchasing an ErgoX chair through their link below helps even more. So support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out FlexiSpot through the links below today.
Yeah. Now, well, let me just continue with the reader mails here. Techno writes in and says, thoughts on FSR 4.1 coming to RX 6000 early next year? I feel like that's too little too late. No, I don't think. I think this is where I think you're lucky you're getting it at all on RDNA 2.
Yeah. I almost have the same thought on this. Like, I don't know, if it were a 3-year-old graphics generation, I would almost agree with what Techno's saying. But the fact that it's it's 6 years old now.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, it almost goes backwards. It almost goes back around to being like, I don't know if you really would have expected RDNA 2 to get it in the first place. And I don't know. Yeah, it's late, but it's an very, very old generation. I feel like people's sense of time, including myself. I guess I don't know if it's just a function of me now being in my 30s instead of my 20s, that like time is accelerated. But I don't know. The 2020s, it does feel like for everyone, time has accelerated a little bit. The 6000 series is the better part of a decade old now, and getting new software features on a 6 or 7 year old product or line, I don't know. That's like you said, that's almost just feel lucky that it's still getting support at all. Like
and I think the only reason it is it seems like it would fundamentally do it the same way. And the 6900 XT has only 30% less tops or whatever than the, I guess 35-40% than the 7900 XTX, which makes me go, oh, so it's not even that much worse at it. Like the difference between the PS5 Pro and the 7900 XTX is like 2-3-fold more than the difference between, actually more than that, depending on how you count what you mean by threefold, than the 6900 XT and the 7900 XTX. So I think the fact is it probably requires not much extra work. And so they were like, well, now everyone's mad at us, so we've got to surprise them by actually supporting RDNA 2 as well. Like, and it won't be that much more work, so we will. Carbon Cry writes in, with AMD's bombshell FSR 4 announcement, I cannot but note the company's failure to serve its greatest hardware with the software support it supports, nay, demands. Where is FSR 4 for the Radeon 7? Of course, Carbon Cry, our resident
Vega
Radeon
fanboy?
7 fanboy. Vega, just Vega in general fanboy. But I will say I did look into this, and actually what do you think the Radeon 7's INT8 is? You saw the chart I sent you before, where like the Series X is like, like 48 tops, and the Steam Machine's 36 tops.
12. I'm gonna go with 12.
55.
Oh shit.
There's no reason the Radeon 7 actually couldn't get FSR 4 support, for what I could tell. And it by the way, so could the PS4 Pro, because it has FP16, and they still do sell rebranded Vega APUs. So I will be honest, I wonder how much more effort it would take to support everything after Polaris, and that would be even cooler. But I think the amount of people that have that is almost none. I will say it would be cool if they did a experimental toggle for Vega, but I don't even know. I think those are already on legacy drivers, so I don't even know what that would mean.
Or my next big piece of speculation, Tom. RDNA 5 canceled. We're getting Vega. Vega is coming back. Yes.
5.0, whatever we would be on by now. Yeah. But so I don't know. I just think that's funny to think about. Let me see here. Let me say one more thing too. I have a couple things I want to say, like, because there's going to be a lot of people, I'm sure, that watch this episode and are like, do you think a PSSR Lite is coming? And I would just say, ask Xbox, because if the Series X gets FSR 4.1, I know the gen's almost over, but these consoles will be used, especially the PS5, for the next few years. I think PlayStation would be stupid to not respond and give Microsoft that end of the generation win. You know what I mean? But I know it's 2027. I know the PS6. It's like, really, we're updating this for. It's like, yes, because FSR 4 is going to be used, and by proxy, FSR 5, which is just probably going to be an upgraded version of that, is going to be used with the PS6, PSSR 3. Come on. Make it so PSSR is in the PS5, PS5 Pro, and PS6 consoles, so that devs always put PSSR into your stuff. It won't run as well, but you'll have to turn it down for the PS5 base. But I just think that'd be such a win, and I just wonder if Sony would bother unless Microsoft made a big deal about that. But in addition to that, I actually think it's pathetic Microsoft hasn't worked with AMD to get some version of FSR 4 to Xbox sooner. I mean, this is so stupid. I mean, there's a theory out there that the Steam Machine's probably launching in a month or two, and that maybe this is happening now because the Steam Machine will use FSR 4.1. That's possibly part of why it's coming out when it is, actually, too, is that AMD felt stupid. But why didn't Xbox do this a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a good piece of like joint advertising with AMD and Steam when the Steam Machine comes out, I suppose. I guess the one like counter I have to what you're saying is I do to some extent feel like the PS5 generation cutoff is going to be particularly harsh, and I don't know how fast they're going to be trying to filter people into the next generation after this one, because I think with that the price hike, everything this gen is getting, I think they're going to want to end support pretty fast. And I honestly kind of think this generation is, even a year before the next one launch starts, it's almost over. It feels like already. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we have.
You're about to get so many angry people in the comments saying Dan wants us to have to buy a new console.
That is exactly what I'm saying. And I suppose a lot of people are still going to be gaming on a PS5 for years to come.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know how big of a priority getting PSSR Lite support on the PS5 will be, given that we're close to the end of this generation, and this generation is kind of ending with a whimper, I think.
Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll see. I think it's too soon to say for sure if this ends with a bang or a whimper, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was more of a whimper compared to certainly the PS3 or the PS4.
Unless like GTA 6, they announce some big upscaling push with that, or that's maybe, a big title that they show off with upscale.
Right, because you have to imagine, I think there's rumors that they have a big marketing deal with PlayStation and GTA 6, unsurprisingly. And that Sony's going to want to show off the PS5 Pro as running whatever it does, 4K 60 or something, GTA 6, and then Xbox Series X, they're going to be like, runs lower. But if Series X comes out and pushes with Rockstar hard to get FSR 4.1 support so they can maintain 60, and then the PS5 base doesn't get anything to make it able to do that, that'd be a pretty big
True.
loss at the end of the gen. And I know these things seem like they don't matter, but it's like, yeah, but I tell you, I know the TV thing in Connect is what everyone says killed Series X, but I actually think that's only half of it. I have a theory. There's no way to prove it, but I think half of it is actually the Series X was, I'm sorry, not Series X, the Xbox One. Xbox One was screwed from the start because of how much malaise there was over the 360 community at the end of that gen. I remember all my friends were switching to PS3 in the last few years. There were no good games coming to Xbox at the end, and yet PS3 was ending with The Last of Us. And I think, I'm sorry, like, you don't want to end a gen losing momentum, because that really does carry over into the next gen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with that. Like, there was this perception, I feel like, that the 360 was like winning the generation for most of it, and it really wasn't. They were kind of tit for tat the entire or most of the generation. I shouldn't say the entire generation, but the PS3 ended up pushing past the 360 at the end of the generation. And I think, like you said, it's because there was a kind of, I don't know, people getting tired of the 360 by the end of it. And I think they had a very promising early generation, but I do think like Microsoft didn't really execute that well on their first parties. And I think that does go back a lot further than people really accept or realize. And Xbox One could have had all of the stupid shit that it had, like the big push in Connect, the big thing where they like had the HDMI input in it for some reason, the stupid DRM features. If they would have had all of those, and they would have had a bunch of great first party games that thing would have launched with, or some other killer feature, or it like wasn't $100 more expensive and weaker than the PS4 for some reason, yeah, they could have had momentum going into that generation, even with those stupid features. And I think you can assign a lot more of the failures to those announcements, when I think that's just, I don't know, those were the last few nails in the coffin more than anything. No.
Yeah, and there's no way to prove it. Everyone was like, the 360 only lost by a little. It'll be a 50-50. Like, there was this guy, Michael Patcher, that was just like, my prediction is the next gen sales will be exactly the same as this one. What a fucking prediction, dude. Like, the future's the same as now. Like, and I just don't think so. I think the PS3 had a shit ton of momentum. And like you said, even if the Series S had the same performance, the same price, no Connect is what we're basically saying, because it had so many less games that people were excited about the end of the PS3 gen, and no real belief that they would have as many first party the next gen. I still think the PS4 would have ran away with that generation, not by as much, but I think it would have. And so I think Sony does need to think about these things, that the PS5 needs to go off with a bang, and Asha Sharma should be like, well, you know what? Even if we're maybe not even making the Series X and S anymore, let's just get a few really cool features in at the very end to like make all those gamers who still own and play, and there are still millions that do, on Series X go, that's so cool. My games look better. GTA 6 actually runs far better than I thought it would. I'm getting Xbox Helix. I think that matters.
Yeah. And I think Xbox, hopefully for them, in tandem with that, is they can put something hopeful out for their first parties within the next like year or so, or close to the Helix launch, because I do think like I just don't know what they're doing with their studios, and I think without like,
they still might not know themselves.
I know without some big push from their first parties, I think it's going to be a little bit more still lukewarm, unless like their big push is really just pivoting away from that old idea, and they're more like, this is just, I don't know, one of our entries into our PC ecosystem with the Helix.
Steve Box TM writes in and says, hello, Tom and Dan. With the great news that FSR 4, or whatever dumb gemstone name they come up with, I thought that was funny, by the way, that they said FSR 4.1. It's like, are we already ditching Redstone and Diamond, the dumbest decision ever made in branding? There's actually a lot of dumb decisions in branding. Not the dumbest, but pretty dumb.
AMD can't brand something the same thing for more than 2 generations. So I'm glad that is the most consistent thing with AMD. So I'm glad they're keeping up with that.
But anyways, he goes on, following this, I really think they need to get Vulcan support for the upscaler as well. There are many games that run Vulcan exclusively, and many times when both APIs, DX12 or Vulcan, are available, Vulcan runs at higher frame rates. Any word or plans on development for this feature for official support? So I have no idea about this, Steve. But I will say, when I saw this reader mail when I was preparing to record, I reached out to Carrie and Carbon Cry and like the Moore's Law is Dead, like our little Discord channel where we prepare the notes for every episode. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, is this correct? And does DLSS 4.5, is that supported in Vulcan? And it's like, yep.
Yeah.
What's going on, AMD? Why is FSR 4 not in Vulcan? I didn't know this. Yeah, I have a 4090. I didn't know that.
That's another thing that makes AMD look amateurish compared to Nvidia in a lot of ways. Like,
that's insane.
I guess you can make the argument that Vulcan never really got the amount of support like that people were excited about when Vulcan initially like made its debut, but still Vulcan exists. Stop. Just AMD, just stop with this shit where your software support is so patchy. Like that's, I don't know why they're so patchy with their software support.
Like Doom the Dark Ages. What?
Yeah.
We're not doing this, Amy?
Oh, yeah.
This is a graphical showcase.
Don't all the Doom games
believe
use
so.
Vulcan? Yeah.
So I don't know how many more are coming with Vulcan support, but this is nuts to me. Jensen Wang, Real Gamers Love DLSS 5, writes in and says, in AMD's latest video announcing FSR 4 coming to RDNA 3 and later RDNA 2, they mentioned they power over 1 billion gaming devices worldwide. Do you have any insight as to how they got to that number? Console is generally 300 million, including all the handhelds, right? Maybe, it probably just includes CPUs, but for a video on FSR 4, I don't know. I don't know. I have no clue. I asked Carrie and Carbon Cry this too, and no one knows. I don't know how true. I mean, billion, like, I think they sell like 5 million GPUs a quarter, but many of those are AI maybe, or.
I mean, what if you're adding
heyday?
If you're adding all consoles, that would be like what PS4, PS5, Series X, One. If you add all of those together, I mean, 300 million probably seems like a decent estimate for all of those combined, right?
And then you have to assume they've sold hundreds of millions of APUs. I don't know. I guess it's just I don't know how they do the cutoff for the APUs. Hopefully, it's not every APU since. Lano. Remember Lano? I remember Lano because I remember all code names for some stupid reason. But
I don't remember Lano.
I remember there were reviews on Newegg that were like, I can't believe this. There's no graphics card in my PC, and this is gaming as well as a GT 520. Like, and back then they were impressed you could do 720p 30 in most games. But anyways, that's a blast from the past. I don't know. Maybe they included, but Lano, how many of that really sell? Maybe it is. Maybe it's like literally every APU in graphics cards since.
Maybe.
I don't. Probably there had to have been a cutoff some other time. I don't know. But let us move on here. We need to stop. When I bring up Lano, it's time to move the conversation forward with story number 2. AMD rumored to reuse Prom 21 again for X970E with Zen 6. So first quoting BioStar and then Tech Power Up and then a very important write-up. BioStar will present its next generation AMD and Intel 800 series motherboards. This was some Computex Type A 2026 announcement. Now, quoting Tech Power Up, AMD's next generation 900 series chipsets could be fundamentally the same chipset as the current 800 series based on the same Promontory 21 silicon designed by ASMedia. What differentiates the platform from current 800 series and previous 600 series chipsets could be a series of add-on features, new BIOS level software features AMD is introducing with its next-gen processors, and a significantly overhauled memory support. Now, here's the write-up by Carbon Cry. Sad as we are to say, we once again have to discuss the irresponsible reporting in our hobby. Rather, it's not a hobby for us. This is our job, Carbon Cry, rather than actual news, or I guess a hobby if it's PC gaming. So what happened? The BioStar press release was real. They deleted the next generation bit, but the edit was easily revealed as they left 2 spaces there. That's funny. And Google has cached the original wording. What didn't happen, though, was any solid information that the Prom 21 chipset, the same one used in Zen 4 motherboards, by the way, would be used. Mega-sized GPU, an occasional Twitter leaker simply theorized it might be, and then Tech Power Up spiced up their report with this speculation, saying they could rely on could be's rather than making clear the nature of the suggestion. Now that we know what was actually said, we can analyze with sober eyes. First, it is entirely possible that BioStar simply messed up with the next generation thing. And even if they didn't, then it would not be that weird to preview the board half a year early. Otherwise, we know nothing about the chipset. But let's assume it's Prom 21 being used. Is that really an issue? Not in the low and the mid tier, but if AMD thought they could get away with it by reusing the old anemic chipset in the high end, they have another thing coming. Instead of Zen 6 24 core low-end workstations, we're expecting Intel could dominate with Nova Lake and a platform with sufficient IO for professional use. Right. So, yeah, this was seeing the full write-up on this. There are so many people that just tweet shit or talk on NeoGAF or Reddit, and then people write these ridiculous articles where it's honestly not even portraying the speculation in a forum correctly. So, like, I don't know, will they reuse Prom 21 and will it be limited to the same amount of PCIe lanes? Tons of people messaged on the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel comment section about this. I don't know, but none of this was confirmed or really suggested by anyone.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we don't cover things that we believe are true. We cover things because everyone's talking about it. And in this case, it's all bullshit.
Yeah, I'm almost a little confused because this does just seem like one of the most wild, baseless speculation things I've seen in a while. Like we've talked before about like forum posts being overread as like being a leak or whatever. But this just seems like it's baseless speculation on baseless speculation. And I don't know, like, yeah, I guess if the 970E were to use Prom 21 again, I think that would be kind of stupid. But there's nothing really more to say on that because like that part of the story isn't really a story from what I can see. Like,
and I'm quoting Mega Size GPU from Twitter directly. He says, it could be another Prom 21 refresh. He says, could be, but with full CUDA and CAM support. And then he goes on, chipset wise, it's the same, but the BIOS and the RAM have undergone fundamental changes. So to me, it sounds like he's almost saying, like, I at least know these other things are entirely different, but maybe I guess it could still be that. There's nothing you're suggesting it, though, directly that it is.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess all of these websites exist and they need clicks every day. And this is how you end up getting stories like this. I mean, if I were if I were a mega sized GPU, I would be a little bit annoyed, like if I wanted to have credibility, if like all of the speculation kept happening around me. And maybe at a certain point, because the Twitter leaking sphere or Twitter leaking and leaking adjacent sphere is so influential on tech reporting. I don't know. Maybe maybe Twitter leakers need to start being a little bit more proactive about protecting their credibility, because it seems like if you make a Twitter account and put a robot or
even just comment on Reddit.
Yeah, or no, if you make a Twitter account though, give yourself a robot or anime girl or Pokemon profile picture or something, and then fart, half of tech media will cover it. So
yeah, and again, I think there's something, I've talked about this theory for a while, that there's something going on where, and I will toot my own horn here, like it seems like half of the leaks that end up true are coming from Moore's Law is Dead. And like, it's like, what do you want me to say? The full PS5 Pro specs, Moore's Law is dead. Helix, Moore's Law is dead. Canis, Orion, PS6, Moore's Law is dead. The entire RDNA 5 lineups from who? This channel, Nova Lake, pictures of the architecture, Moore's Law is dead. Like it's all, and I think some journalists are like, well, I can't just quote Moore's Law is dead constantly, so I've got to find other leakers. But Cortex flamed out, Kepler's busy flaming out, Greymon deleted his account, and we have all, and Angstronomics was fantastic.
Yeah, Angstronomics was great for like 6 months or whatever.
Well, Jim, Adore TV doesn't do this anymore, so there's not that many. I continue to say the other leakers, Gamers Nexus, like, and who really isn't one, doesn't really, I don't think, proclaim he is one. So there aren't that many, and so they're like, well, shit, how do I fart out an article I get paid $10 for quickly, and I have to do 10 of these an hour? And these journalists are just like scraping NeoGAF, and scraping it quite desperately.
Yeah, and the problem is, like, obviously there are a lot of other people that have sources or are adjacent to some source, or like, I don't know, maybe they're just friends with a guy at AMD or Intel or Nvidia, so they hear the
There's
news
tens
and
of
they
thousands
just
of people at
tweet
this company.
random shit out
friends.
about
Yeah.
it. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't doubt that there a lot of these people on Twitter have like some real information, but I do think like a weird thing that happens with it is you get a mixture of speculation that's not clearly discussed as speculation, leaks, or just a guy talking, and that's all treated as news or leaks and rumors news. Where I think more, if you're going to cover this, like, I don't know, more precise language needs to start being used, because leaks, rumors, speculation are all different things, and they're kind of just all covered in one like bucket, as if like they all mean the same thing, where it's like a person claiming that something is a leak. I get why you call it's a rumor, but if that person has like a track record of putting out true leaks, okay, then that seems to be like, okay, that there's a source that leaks. And then there's just, I don't know, rumors and speculation, which kind of just turns into people looking at things that are consistent with the news or whatever. And those are just completely different stories, but they're covered the same a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I just hope, I mean, let us know in the comments if you guys are sick of this or if this affects your clicking habits, because they're going to keep doing this if you guys keep clicking it. But I will be honest, there's been a few websites on like my Google News feed, I'm just scrolling on my phone, and there are some websites I've just clicked, don't show me anything from this source again, because I've clicked on some articles where I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the article? And I hope people do that enough to where, because some people do report well. There's a few specifically, I know there's at least, there's some bad people at WCCF Tech. I think there's a couple console reporters on WCCF Tech that write pretty well. And then there's some pretty good writers on Notebook Check, right? And on TweakTown, there's a couple good ones that try to actually, and on TechSpot, I've actually noticed they really do try. They don't cover leaks as often, but when they do, they try to have it accurately portrayed. And those writers should get more recognition for what little pay I know they probably get compared to the ones that are just willing to do this. It's just pathetic.
Well, and that might be part of the problem, though, is like I feel like we're out of this era where like reporters, or especially tech reporters, because like journalists that like cover like international events and stuff still get like recognition to some extent, but like tech reporters, I think we're out of this space like really from the early 2010s, like when IGN was in its heyday, where a lot of these writers had like their own followings of their own. Like you would recognize specific writers at IGN.
Yep.
And
Greg Miller, Colin Moriarty.
Yeah. And you're kind of in this space now where there's not really much of a personality to a lot of these people, like unless they also have like a YouTube channel with it. So I just don't know what the incentive structure, or I shouldn't say incentive, the reward structure is that like puts the good writers ahead of the lazier slop writers, unless those writers also like have a unique voice or a YouTube channel outside of just what they do, like writing for one of these tech outlets. And I don't know. I think that's a gap that exists in like the media ecosystem we exist in now.
Yeah. I don't know much more there is to say about it. It's just, we had to cover this, everybody. Might they reuse Prom 21? Sure. And I'd have a discussion about if that's a good or bad idea. Like I could see it being, if they get down to $200 to $300 motherboards with just updated memory support. And then on the other hand, over here, you have Intel trying to sell you a $500 motherboard with a $1,000 processor. I could see a lot of people just going with Zen 6 for the existing cheap motherboard, but we can't even really have that discussion yet. Nothing's been leaked.
I'm fine if Prom 21 continues to be used next generation, if it's like in what would it be, like 950 motherboards or something like that. Like I
well,
would just hope to see
the
something
article was written like that's all they would use.
Okay. I mean, I would hope something that actually replaces the top end chipset would exist, though.
I agree. No News writes in, will CUDA support come to AM5 and will it be limited to Zen 6 and 7? So I looked this up. I think technically it is already supported on AM5. It just can't use the maximal speeds that the new technology in it allows it to get to. I don't know, but considering they're going to 32 cores with Zen 7, I continue to think that they will probably have a more high-end chipset come. Also I think with CUDA, it's mostly the IO die that would limit this anyway. So I don't know how much of an issue that would be. Technically, there's CUDA support. I assume Zen 6 and 7 will be able to use it much better than Zen 5. I don't really know that there's much else to say about it, though. All right, let us move on then from these AMD stories to an Intel story with number 3. Intel CEO confirms ongoing product collaboration with Nvidia. Quoting from Lip Bhutan, Intel CEO, Intel and Nvidia are collaborating to develop new exciting products. That doesn't sound like much, but I can't help but take every opportunity I can to point out that the leaks that I've put out that ARC is pretty much being wound down and Intel is moving to use Nvidia and their iGPUs. This is, again, further, I believe, confirmation that that is going to happen. But in addition to that, I want to use this as an opportunity to shoehorn in a teaser for upcoming leaks and address some other rumors that are out there. So in the past couple of months, there have been a lot of rumors that have appeared regarding Intel's upcoming products, mainly from leaker Jaken on Twitter. Someone who, honestly, at Moore's Law said we do take fairly seriously. The track record is pretty good. And I've often seen him say something that I know that I haven't seen anyone else say yet. Anyways, his first claim of recent was something that makes perfect sense. And that's that the first Intel NVIDIA APU could be something that he calls Serpent Lake, which would be a derivative of Titan Lake. That more or less fits our leaks from February and what I've heard, although I must stress that a lot of these code names are still in flux. So I wouldn't be so sure what everything will be called. Like, I think, for example, Panther Lake's Cove, like, had its name changed like 5 times. Then, though, he claims that Titan Lake keeps the strong P and E core split of the current Intel design, something that we believe is a misunderstanding, at least in part, or at least not the full picture. Same for a claim that Nova Lake AX is canceled. I can personally tell you all that I've just seen documents in the past week where they are still labeled Nova Lake AX. So at a minimum, it's misleading to suggest that the thing that has been called Nova Lake AX is completely gone, if you know what I mean. What I can say now, before putting out our full report soon, though, is that we do believe a lot of these wires are crossed and that the full story isn't being reported here. So, yeah, again, some of what he says seems to be true. Some of it isn't. We'll be putting out a full Intel leak in the next couple of weeks, I think. I just want to take a chance to touch on this while everyone's talking about it, because depending on how an article frames what he said, they frame it like a bunch of stuff's been canceled or a bunch of stuff isn't happening. And it's not true from what I can tell. Just names are very easy to change, people. I guess that's what I'll say.
So more like, would you say more in flux or just internal not changes or internal changes to references?
Everything from not really Nova Lake, but Razor Lake to Hammer Lake. All of these things are having a lot of redefinitions and name changes and stuff going on. But like the idea that Intel's not moving forward with some Halo APU, they are, I believe, still. So Nova Lake AX being canceled would make it sound like they're done. They're not. And the product they call Nova Lake AX, I don't believe that's canceled. It just could be like a name change or something. Yeah, I don't want to say more than that because I actually have quite a few surprise things that's being confirmed to me right now. And I just want to make sure before I say them that I cross-reference this information, these roadmaps that I have with other sources and dot the I's, because sometimes I can misread something, right? And, but I would just say, I don't think a lot of stuff's being canceled over there besides, of course, ARC long-term.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm just making spurious connections there, but like, hopefully that to me means like the issue I think is very evident exists at Intel, where teams don't know what each other is doing, that there's some form of consolidation and reworking of teams going on if there's a lot of internal like name changes happening right now.
Techno writes in. Oh, go
Intel
on.
needs that. No, that's all I had.
Techno writes in, any thoughts to the rumor that Celestial D GPUs are canceled, but XE4 D GPUs are still planned? Will XE4 dedicated graphics cards be designed from the ground up on Intel's own node to save money to? So honestly, Techno and I didn't put them in the document, Dan, but he included a bunch of pictures of tweets.
Okay.
And I have to say, looking at from Mega GPU, I have to say, looking at these tweets, they contradict each other. Like, there's a tweet that says ARC is fine. Well, in the next tweet saying XE3P is canceled and XE4 is up in the air. So I don't know how you can say ARC is fine if you're not even sure what's coming out. So I don't know if there's other tweets I haven't seen, Techno, but I think everything I've said I stick to, that ARC is clearly being wound down in favor of using Nvidia and more of their integrated stuff. There's really no evidence of dedicated cards coming after Battlemage anywhere from anyone I've talked to. And so, yeah, to me, it sounds like he's just kind of saying what I've already said in different ways. Well, and I see this a lot with Twitter leakers being weirdly optimistic about ARC, despite reporting information just as
Bad
negative
news.
as mine. That makes absolutely no sense. Like, ARC's fine. XE3P canceled. XE4 up in the air. Sounds like it's not fine. I mean, could you imagine if I was like, guys, RDNA 5 is canceled and RDNA 6 is up in the air, but don't worry, Radeon's fine? That is not, no one would see that and go, oh, that makes sense.
Well, hear me out, Tom. XE5, that's when things are going to be great. In the year like 2032, when XE5 comes out, Tom.
Right, and if
that's
something's
when
like-
ARC finally comes into its own.
And if something is 6 years away, is this even really a leak that ARC is fine? Because I think what you're just saying is they reboot it, right? Like, that's not even really like it's fine. Terry No Sugata writes in and says, with the rise of agentic AI, CPUs have become much more important for AI workloads. Did Nvidia miss a big opportunity by not trying to buy Intel back when it was still dirt cheap? Though with the ARM deal being blocked, maybe they thought it wasn't worth trying. I think under this administration they could have, but maybe they didn't have the foresight. Maybe these acquisitions take years. Maybe by the time they knew Trump would be president again, it was like, you know what I mean? But I think with enough foresight, I think Nvidia buying Intel would have been a move that would have really helped a lot of their issues right now.
Yeah, just throw.
Not that I'm saying I want it. I'm just,
Yeah, just like throw 10 million at that presidential library and maybe they get an approval.
Exactly. Yes. The 1 billion, the 30 billion under budget presidential. The ballroom, really.
Oh, the ball. Well, no, I was
maybe
thinking
both.
of that stupid library sorry.
Oh yeah, the AI generated
Full-
library tower. Yeah.
Not to get too political here, but I think that library was very funny.
Guys, the AI generated video of the Trump library where people's hands are falling off and like somehow
There's like a 777 just hanging
and
out
like
there.
an F-16 or something, and in the bottom. Also, not a single book in the whole video of this library. It's objectively hilarious. All right, let us now move on then to story number 4.
This spring, Jessie, like many Belgian Malinois, is starting her own logging company outside. And I gotta say, watching her do this, it's bizarre. It's almost as weird as someone paying full price for Microsoft Office or operating systems, and that is why this piece of content is brought to you by CDkeyoffer.com. That's right, once again, the longest running sponsor actually of Moore's Law is Dead, CDkeyoffer.com is sponsoring this piece of content, and that's because I just think it's something that should be out there, something that our community should always know about, and that is reasonably priced Microsoft keys and also deals on different pieces of software like games as well on their website. Now, if you're interested in supporting Moore's Law is Dead and thus supporting a sponsor that supports Moore's Law is Dead, go to CDkeyoffer.com through the link below. Just clicking on that link helps a ton. But then if you do go there and want to buy something, make sure you use offer code BrokenSilicon to save 25% on all Microsoft software and Die Shrink to save 3% off everything else on the website. Again, they've been a great sponsor this whole time. I love working with them. It's easy to work with them, and they provide a service I think this community needs, reasonably priced Microsoft keys. So support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out CDkeyoffer.com today.
Nintendo Switch 2 officially getting price increase later this year, quoting from Nintendo and then the write-up. Nintendo hereby announces that it has decided to revise the price of the following products and services in light of changes in market conditions and after considering the global business outlook. Nvidia Nintendo will revise the manufacturer's suggested retail price of the Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch systems in Japan as follows. Given that the impact of various changes in the market conditions is expected to extend. Okay. Price revisions are also planned outside Japan as described below. Like, for example, $500 now in the United States. In September, though. Eventually, Nintendo had to do it, I guess, to join the price rising party. Fortunately for our mostly non-Japanese audience, though, Nintendo's home market will suffer the most, with an almost 20% hike. Meanwhile, the US and Canada get around a 10% hit, and Europe escapes with a just 5% price increase, although one could argue that's because it had the higher MSRP to begin with anyways. But the even bigger difference is honestly timing. In Japan, the change has been almost immediate, but in the other markets, we have until September to buy the old MSRP. So they're giving you 4 months to get this. This could indicate that Nintendo wants to accelerate sales of existing stock, which would mean Switch 2 sales are not going as well as Nintendo wanted in the United States, or at least that's what we would claim. At least that's my opinion. Beyond the Switch, though, the Japanese price increase is worrying because that is where Sony wants to challenge Nintendo's dominance with the PS6 Portable with Canis. Nintendo increasing their cutthroat domestic price could mean Sony gets free reign with raising Canis MSRPs as well, right? That was my first takeaway with the Switch 2 going to $500. I'm like, considering the price of how much everything else is going up, which it is noticeable in the grocery store right now, 10% more, $50 more for the Switch 2 in the US. I'm like, I don't really think that's going to make the difference if you wanted it, and you can get it now anyways for $450 still. What I thought was, dang it, PS6 handheld is almost certainly not $500 now, and will probably be $550 or $600. We'll see. But that's my takeaway. I don't know what you think about this, Dan.
Kind of the first thought I had about it was the very, very long delay between the announcement and the price hike was interesting to me. And the first thought I had is I'm very curious how much this is going to drive a buying frenzy of the Switch 2, given that like our speculation that like a lot of the early adopters of it were just people that were very enthusiastic about the Switch, but they
want to play Zelda above 20 frames a second.
True. But it doesn't seem like there's that much broad interest in the Switch 2 outside of like Nintendo diehard fans, which is why like it looks like it sold really well at first and then kind of just died off. So I'm very curious if this, like you said, if this is some intentional strategy from them or if this is going to drive a big buying frenzy of the Switch 2 to begin with.
Yeah, because this is something, again, we're really beating a dead horse here, but this, before the Switch 2 came out, me and you thought it would sell well at first, but we were skeptical it would have the legs that the original Switch had. And, you know, it set sales records like the first second it came out. But then I remember by holiday season late last year, I went into a Best Buy and there's just a pyramid of them. Like no one was checking out with them. So
they're
it's
easy for me to find now. And they were not that easy to find for a couple months.
Yeah. And so I think there's something here where Nintendo over-shipped the Switch 2 into the United States at a minimum, and now they're trying to get people to exhaust that supply. So I think that's obvious, and we'll see what happens. You know, me and you talked about it on some other piece of content as well. I think, didn't we? Did we talk? No, I talked about it with Brian Heemskirk on the last episode of Broken Silicon. And the only other thing I would add about this is, you know, I know it's going to $500. If you want a Switch 2, get it. You know, I don't think it's going to get cheaper than this. I mean, eventually maybe they'll do some price drop or something, but I think it's unlikely they do anytime soon. Having said that, if you have no want for it now, you want to wait a few years, you know, you think $50 is going to make you more money just sitting in the stock market or somewhere instead of getting the Switch 2 now for a system that has no games you want to play yet. I find it unlikely this thing just skyrockets a ton more unless everything else does even more than it, because it uses 8 nanometer. That's not the supply constrained node. And it also has only 12 gigabytes of RAM. So I think this is less of a problem than like the PS5 Pro with 18 gigs of RAM and using 4 nanometer, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's like a discussion I feel like we've had before. And it's almost a discussion of like, I mean, obviously don't buy everything the second it is, because, but like, how much do you value your time and money? Like, when people talk about how much money they save by like waiting for a console, like, okay, so you saved like $200 and you didn't get 2 years with a console. Was that really worth it to you? Like for this, save $50. I don't know. If you really want to Switch 2, yeah, get it. I mean, the Switch 2, I have nothing negative to say about the device itself. So if it's something you want, get it.
All right. Now what we should also get is moving on to story number 5. Asha Sharma acts as co-pilot for Xbox. Project Greenleaf leaked. Quoting first from Asha Sharma and then getting to the write-up. As part of this shift, you'll see us beginning to retire features that don't align with where we're headed. We will begin winding down Copilot on mobile and will stop development of Copilot on console. Asha Sharma continues her charm offensive with perhaps the most consequential announcement. Xbox Helix won't be the AI box we feared it might be. She and Xbox as a whole have kicked into high gear to revive the brand. Well, there are no results we can actually judge yet. Console's not out. You know, we are certainly getting more optimistic about her, though, than Xbox under Phil Spencer, who was really a dead man walking for months before his removal.
Years.
The optimism, years. The optimism is strengthened by what we leaked last year. Project Greenleaf. This is Xbox's Eco Initiative, a set of demands on dropping power in suitable moments, like in menus, when staring at a wall, looking up at the sky, etc., and suggestions from Microsoft on how a game can get there. And we have tests from Microsoft, not just Microsoft, but also Fortnite that Jar can put on screen, validating these goals. Now, beyond the ecological side, this will also help handhelds a ton. After all, every watt second counts in such devices. This shows Microsoft is taking the threat of Linux seriously, as their main competitor in handhelds is Steam Deck, a Linux device. And I think another thing to note is this actually also further proves that the main reason there is a low power mode coming to PS5 is just preparing compatibility with the PlayStation 6 handheld, because the way Microsoft does Project Greenleaf is actually interesting. They have a set in their like SDK for development, like, you should try these things and here's examples, and like we pre-made some stuff to help you do it, to like save energy. But it's not like PlayStation. It's actually the opposite way of doing things, where you have to do this to the clocks and turn off these cores. They're all suggestions. To get the Project Greenleaf badge, they just have a set way of testing your game in different scenarios. And as long as you get like a 20 to 30% power consumption reduction on average, you get the badge. But it's up to the developer to find a way to do it, in case they can find a way to do it where performance isn't hurt at all. So I think that's really smart and really interesting. And again, that's how you would do this. Like, I've been making fun of low, power saver mode on the PlayStation 5 for a while now, because the way they do it makes absolutely no sense for actually saving power. I don't know. I just think that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess we already see that with handhelds. I guess that means that Microsoft, to me, is probably going to be making a big push into like third-party handhelds. Like, I think they're hoping to see a lot of them in the future. Like, this could be a really good push for advertising. What is it, the Xbox mode on PC? I can't remember what the actual name of it is right now for some reason. Their competitor or version of big picture mode.
I think it might just be Xbox mode.
Oh, but it is just Xbox mode. Okay. Yeah, I think this could I think it suggests that like that's going to be part of their strategy, which like my big problem with it as that exists right now is I don't really see a reason to use it. So I hope Greenleaf is it shows that that's going to be something they're going to be pushing harder. And also, thank you, Xbox, for saving the environment with Project Greenleaf. I do like that this isn't like advertised as a battery saving feature. This is good for the environment, Tom.
Well, actually, Root Knight writes in with an interesting suggestion. He says, about the Greenleaf certification, could this be for Game Pass, actually? As far as I know, cloud gaming is just a bunch of servers running the game and shipping the output over the internet. So, for example, if 30% of the Game Pass library was to get Greenleaf certified, wouldn't that be a massive cost reduction in energy for Microsoft at the cloud level? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Actually, this is an interesting idea. It might be partially or even mostly for that as well. They're just not talking about it because that doesn't really directly affect the consumer.
Yeah, well, that would be big savings for Microsoft. Maybe some good tax incentives for them too, rather than like the few watts you would save on a handheld, probably, or like 10 watts you would save on a handheld.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're onto
Yeah,
something.
that's an interesting idea.
Carbon Cry writes in, given consoles are AMD and handhelds are mostly AMD, is Radeon Chill a component of Greenleaf? Is anything happening with Chill technology? I don't know. If AMD is not going to do anything with it, could Microsoft take it over and include it in the Xbox SDKs? Well, I'll answer the last question first. They are. This is going to be, and this is also what makes Project Greenleaf so interesting to me, is when it really seems boring on paper, is it's like, well, no, they're building this into the dev kit pipeline to make Helix, and then the handheld optimizations for Ally X, and then Series X, Series S, this picture we've shown a million times. If you have Project Greenleaf certification, they put a Greenleaf on your game, and you will be prominently displayed on one of the main menus of the store. So there's incentive for devs to do this. And yeah, I mean, they're trying to make it as easy as possible to do and as open to do as you could possibly do as well. So I think this is going to actually make quite a much larger impact than Radeon Chills. Most people just ignore that, even though it's actually quite a useful feature.
Yeah, and very clearly a type of symbiotic relationship they're trying to strike up with devs where, you also get this free advertising for your game if you do the work for us.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I would also point out about this, like something that I noted is, technically that means Project Greenleaf may apply to some PlayStation games. Like,
yeah,
Xbox may make PlayStation games more efficient because like a Halo coming to PlayStation won't get the Greenleaf badge on the PlayStation Store, but they're trying to build this to just be like an inherent thing you have as options built into the game when it makes sense. So again, like Radeon Chill, you need to turn on. Power saver mode on PlayStation, you need to turn on. I think they're trying to make this a thing where it's just kind of on by default.
In the game.
Yeah, but also there's probably a toggle to crank it up and make it, But so this might just actually do much more than power saver mode or Radeon Chill ever did because it's done for you.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. All I would hope is, and I'm not saying I think this will happen, is like that you don't get weird implementations of this where you get weird stuttery frame rates if they're like one of the tactics is to like, I don't know, reduce frame rate when you're like looking at a wall or something. Which I know they've been able to do that in the past, but
Jensen Wang, Real Gamers Love DLSS 5, writes in and says, given the modularity of RDNA 5, in order to compete with Sony, could Microsoft attach poorer yields of their custom CPU chiplet with AT3 and AT4 for a lockdown console box and maybe a handheld, respectively? If they push power like crazy, could they come to the home console PS6 with AT3, or could they get to that level of performance? I think is what you're asking. I don't know. Remember the PS6, like you're saying AT3. Remember, AT3 uses LPDDR6 or LPDDR5X, whereas the PS6 APU has GDDR7. So that's just going to be wildly more bandwidth right there. So I think you're always going to see Medusa Halo, the AT3 chiplet, be a little weaker than the PS6 home console, at least, if not, honestly, notably cheaper, depending on clocks. Now, the question of, is there a chance they would attach the 24 compute unit AT4 die to the Magnus 11 core CPU SoC die to make a handheld option? I don't know. I feel like that would use too much power. I think you maybe do that to make an Xbox laptop, but that AT4 die is probably 15 to 45 to 65 actually watts on its own. And then you add, something that's probably 50 watts. I just find it unlikely they do this. But they could. And I also think it would be very cost prohibitive because think about it. The 11 core CPU die, I think, was like 150 millimeters squared, 145, 140. I think it was 144 millimeters squared. I don't remember the die size of AT4, but if I were to guess, it's like at least 150. So you're getting to a die size larger than the PS6 with less than half the compute units. I just don't see it as being that competitive. It'd be stronger than the PlayStation 6 handheld, but still, I don't know. It'd be a lot more expensive.
And I don't know. I feel like something comparable to this at least would more be in the realm of like, I don't know what it would be generation they would be, but like the Z4, Z3 or whatever generation of that the AMD will be on, or semi-custom in some third party that makes it.
Yeah.
You know.
Jensen Wang writes in yet again and says, I'd like to reiterate and add on that a journalist did ask about not only Steam with Microsoft and got a non-answer. They also asked about Epic Game Store as well, which previously was going to be on Helix, I thought, and they also got a non-answer. And for context, Carbon Cry added here, the outfit called GameFile asked Asha Sharma these questions, and she said, we are not ready to share our plans. Guys, why are we assuming Steam is on Helix? I don't know that they even know which storefronts are going to be on there yet.
Yeah, to be a little bit more fair, or to be a little bit like counter to that, maybe it's they just haven't worked out these deals yet. That I guess that's a possibility too.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know why we're assuming it runs Steam. We're just everyone's acting like it's guaranteed. I think it's a coin flip.
I would not bet that it runs Steam. Yeah.
Mark Smith writes in, how likely is Microsoft to open the floodgates with Helix and making it able to play all previous generations of Xbox physical titles? A move like that could be seen as extremely consumer friendly. I'm going to level with you, Mark. I've been assuming it was going to do this the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, the only possibility is if it doesn't have a disk drive, and there's no possibility that it will. But
you could have an add-on disk drive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, if I think it would be a mistake to, given what Xbox is going for with really open platform, I think, supporting all Xbox titles would be great. And that wouldn't be workable if it were digital only.
Yeah, there's been some weird rumors going around. I didn't look at it because they seem like, again, just people scraping NeoGAF for writing an article about nothing. But like, is there a way Microsoft could plug in? You put a disc in, and then it gives you a digital copy tied to your account.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
But then what? You kill the game? Or do they not care because it's old? But publishers might have had contracts. That sounds like something that is not possible.
They put the 360 disk drive in each Xbox, and it kills the disc by eating it.
Yeah, because the 360 already ate like a 30-year discs or something. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I've just been assuming there'd be some way to add a disk drive and play those games the whole time. I wasn't aware people were worried about that. I mean, if everything I've seen is that it's going to have, and I think they've said, haven't they, that it has backwards compatibility. I have to assume that means physical discs as well somehow.
Although counterpoint, Microsoft is no stranger to you not being able to play games you bought from them previously. So.
No, it's kind of their favorite thing. So who knows? Jensen Wing writes in and says, estimated BOM loss for the PS3 was, I think, like what, 300, 230 for the 500 non-existent model and 600 model respectively. I saw one in a Best Buy once, but yes, I think it was a
$500 one.
Yeah, the 20 gigabyte.
Oh, I saw them. I mean,
okay, they were very low volume. I do believe after the first few months, though, you never saw them.
Yeah, they replaced it with the 40 and 80 gigabyte models pretty quickly, like within a year, didn't they?
Yeah, very quickly. And then they dropped it to 400 and 500.
I still regret not buying the 60 gigabyte version when I could have. But
really, what, for full backwards compatibility?
Yeah, it would have just been cool to have over the newer version, but whatever. Sure. That was almost 20 years ago.
Anyways, though, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like that was about the loss. By the way, my understanding is that's about the loss the 360 had when it first came out as well. People continue to underreport that like the 360 may have had a similar loss per unit. And that's before you consider the red ring of death. It was a horrible war of attrition, that generation. But anyways, when it comes to cost, I've said this before somewhere, but I guess I'll say it again here. Look, I have a document that I referenced in my RDNA 5 leak that was... There's at least on one doc, AMD says and I'm using this name as a proxy, but like the successor to the 9070 XT, the RPX 1070 XT, that AT2 dedicated GPU was targeting $550. Well, okay, the die that has the memory controller and all the compute units, that's literally shared with Xbox Helix. So if they can do that with a display out, with still needing a PCB and needing the cooler and needing 18 gigabytes of RAM, apparently, they can do that for $550. I don't understand why instead of a display out, you put like a 144 millimeter squared 3 nanometer chiplet and probably double the RAM to, I don't know, 36 gigabytes for this console. We'll see what they do. I think 36 is probably likely, though. I don't see why that would cost even twice as much as $550. What I'm getting to is, I don't, when it comes to BOM costs, we literally know they're targeting $550 for most of a Helix. So I think before the Rampocalypse, 800 to 900 was totally doable. Keep in mind, dedicated cards from Radeon have like a 20 to 60% profit margin. So if they went to more like a 5 to 20% profit margin for this console, that's how you get to something that I think actually would have cost less than people expect. Now, look, now RAM prices have gone up, but okay, let's say even with a profit, I thought they could get away with like $800 before. Honestly, maybe even $750. All right,
it could be like $950.
They could add like $150, $300 to the cost. And if RAM prices even got a little better, not as good as 2025 or mid 2025, I should say. I still think you could see an $800 Xbox Helix, and I think $999 continues to be the realistic price point. But I've seen people go, oh, it's gonna be $1,500. It's gonna be. If it's $1,500, that's with a fat profit, guys. Again, they were targeting $550 for the same chiplet that still needed cooling. I mean, graphics card coolers and the PC, it's not cheap stuff. It's probably the same cooling cost as a console, actually, if not more.
I mean, look at the look at teardowns of like a PS5 or Series X. I think
cheaper cooling.
Yeah,
than like a decent graphics card.
Then a graphics card that has like a 2 kilogram metal brick on it.
Like if it's a $550 graphics card, okay, so double the RAM and then double the price of that, and that's almost, and then add one $30 or $50 chiplet onto it instead of the display out. I think you still get to a $800 to $1,000 console against Sony, which I think will be more like a $600 to $700 console. Hopefully, we'll see, but. This is the math I would do, just the scratch math to get to. I don't think it'll be $1,500 unless they're like really bending you over a barrel.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is just vibes completely, I suppose. But like my feeling has always been that it's going to be around $1,000, $1,200 at the high end. That's just my feeling on what it's going to be.
What do you think the killer price is? Because just to frame things, I think the Steam Machine killer price is $500. I don't care what the cost of RAM is, or $550. $50 less than the PS. Wait, let me finish. $50 less than the PS5. But it's a Steam machine with all your Steam library. I think $550 looks like a killer price. And then I think PS6, $600 without a disc drive, or maybe $650. So they're charging $50 more than the digital PS5 right now. But they're like only $50 more, and it's better than a Pro. And I think around, assuming RAM prices come down a bit, I think around that price is what they can get away with selling it at a slight loss like they usually do. So what do you think Helix is? Like, what's the killer price? You're getting
$850 to $900 probably.
Yeah, I agree. I think $899 is where people go, wait, I'm getting a high-end PC for $900. It's the same reaction people would have if they saw the Steam machine at like $500 and went, wait, I'm getting a mid-range PC. It's not really, it's an entry-level PC, but you're getting a usable PC for $500. I think that's the same as saying I'm getting a high-end PC for $900. I think the second you get to $1,200 or more, it'd still be a much better deal than building it yourself, I would assume. But it stops to look like a fantastic deal, especially if they only give it like 36 gigs RAM, which I think is enough. 36 gigs, 16 VRAM, 20 for the system RAM. It's enough RAM. But that's where you start to go, Helix is stronger than my $1,500 PC, but my $1,500 PC is 48 gigs of RAM total. You start to go,
The one thing I worry about is how much of an uphill battle Microsoft has in convincing people that like $900 or $850 is still a good price point for what
they have to frame it as a PC.
Yeah, because I'd be a little bit worried that they're going to announce an $850 price point, and you're going to see half of online discussion about it be people really pissed off that a console is so expensive. Even if it, like your and I's opinion will be that it's completely justified.
The greatest deal of the decade for PC gaming.
Or like, most tech media or whatever or a lot of tech media considers it a justified price. Can't forget we're in this anti-consumer fervor right now, where I think everything is framed as anti-consumer unless you're being given it for free or like cheaper than what existed before. So like I get a little worried, like if Microsoft doesn't announce a $500 console and Sony doesn't announce a $500 console, people are just going to be pissed about it no matter what.
Yeah. Well, again, that's why I think Sony, again, I've said this so many times, going vibes alone, PS6 to be perceived as a reasonable price has to be perceived as being a similar price to the PS5. Now, not at launch where you could get it for $400 actually, without the disc drive. It has to be perceived as being around PS5 pricing, which I think $650 is where you would be. Although honestly, I think $600 is really what you'd want to see. And it needs to be less than the PS5 Pro, notably, which everyone has always thought of as expensive. And that's what you do with a loss leader. The Pro is not a loss leader. The base console is a loss leader to get people in the door to buy your software. I think the Xbox Helix needs to be perceived as in the same ballpark as the current Pro consoles. So that is $900. That is, well, definitely not more than $1,000. The second you do that, you compare it to PCs, which will be a good deal compared to PCs, but you want it to feel like a joke to compare it to PCs. You want it to be like, oh, it's not, you don't want to be like, ooh, this $1,800 PC is not any better than this $1,200 console. And it's like, well, if I'm willing to spend $1,200, I probably have enough for $1,800. And actually that PC lets me upgrade more of the components. It has more RAM. It actually is better for more. You want it to be, can you believe this $1,800 PC is the same performance as a $900 console PC thing? That's what I think you want to do.
And I'm very excited if they do that for the Xbox killer builds we'll see online. Like,
build this thing cheaper than a Helix, nail it, and they just nail a motherboard to a board of wood and act like that's a fair comparison. Oh, we're just making fun of the potato masher builds that we thought were very stupid against the previous.
Root around in dumpsters. Hope you find a 59-1.
Yeah. All right. Let us move on here to the final story. Story number 6. This piece of content is brought to you by the 6 X7400 Gen 4 NVMe SSD. It has read speeds up to 7,350 megabytes per second, making it fast even for a Gen 4 SSD. Then it also comes with an included heatsink that is low profile, so it will fit inside of a PlayStation 5 should you want to upgrade that. If you are interested in this product, please check out the link in the description to support the sponsor and to support Moore's Law is Dead. No, Sony isn't launching a 128-bit PS6, and they do need to get to the next generation sooner than you think. All right up on this one. Just 2 news episodes ago, we opened by dispelling next-gen doomerism by killing PS6 myths. Now we have to repeat ourselves, it seems, especially when it comes to PlayStation. As we should have expected, fake rumors of a 2029 plus launch of 24 gigabyte home consoles being the absolute maximum we should expect. And who knows what the hell else is continuing to be shared unabated out there, showing a growing despair and irrationality supported by those making money on people's agitated state. Far from sensational, we here at Moore's Law Z maintain our position. We know what Orion and Canis were built to be, and that is not going to change in the final stretch to the launch. The silicon is designed. The needs and wants of Sony, focus on AI, ray tracing, easier game making, are the same. They remain unchanged. And believe it or not, Sony's business plan hasn't changed at all either. They don't plan based on 1 year of bad memory prices or even 4 years of a bad US administration. They have to plan farther out than that. PlayStation 6 is a huge shift, impacting all the way to how games will be made. It is not just Sony hardware that depends on it, but PlayStation Studios. The future of PlayStation depends on an attractive console that will remain attractive for a decade. And so, as we keep saying, Orion, the home console, not the handheld, will have at least 30 gigabytes of RAM because that is the minimum to allow the next-gen experiences Sony is trying to deliver. And by the way, even if it was not possible by late 2027 to launch a 30 gigabyte Orion console profitably, people saying they would cut down this console to get to 24 gigabytes, seem to have not followed the leaks very well, because there's already a 24 gigabyte design out there. Canis, the handheld, which could be put in a cheaper console than one with Orion in the first place. Additionally, if Sony actually got insanely desperate, like let's say RAM prices go up and they have no confidence they will come down during the generation, they would not cut down a 160-bit bus, which is what I've leaked is in it, to a 128-bit bus to get to 24 gigabytes. They would just give it 20 gigabytes. That would be a way to save even more money on RAM while still maximizing raw performance. We know, but either way, one thing is clear. Sony has to move on. We now know that PS5 sales, as recent reporting that is out there, are collapsing. So we would expect this usually near the end of a gen, but it's usually in year 7, not in year 6. The current economic and political situation have accelerated this life cycle, it seems, as Sony's financials have shown that PS5 sales cratered 46% year on year in their last quarter. So Sony really does actually need to get to next gen. It needs to be attractive. And frankly, even late 2027 is looking a little long and a little late for their bottom line. So I don't know. I've probably talked to you offline about some of the stupidest rumors I've seen in my life out there, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, it really does just feel like that. Again, it's like this big doomer perspective on everything, where it really does just feel like that there's a lot of very much baseless speculation around how like much the PS6 will be delayed by, or next gen consoles in general will be delayed by, and it really does just feel like baseless speculation being like reframed almost as something adjacent to a leak a lot of the time, where there's not really any information to suggest that that's going to happen. And I think the same thing is happening well, Sony might need to save money on RAM because we're in the RAM apocalypse right now, despite the fact that this is going to come out a year from now when RAM might not be as in bad of a place as it is right now. And again, like I think I said on the Die Shrink that we recorded about this, they're going to be selling this thing until like 2040 probably. They need to make decisions that last longer than whatever, like you said, like maybe optimistically will be impacting the market for like the next 8 months, maybe 2 to 3 years. Like this is going to live longer than that. And yeah, if they're going to be selling something for that long, it needs to be up to the task, and 24 gigabytes just isn't going to be up to the task. And like I've talked about earlier on this episode, the PS5 is dying quickly. I don't know why you would release something that's just,
we're telling people not to buy the Pro flat out and not probably the base console. Like the prices have just jumped up. You got 1 year to wait till a cool new handheld's out.
Yeah, I don't think if Sony comes out with a 24 gigabyte console and says this is the thing we're selling you for the next 12 years is going to convince a lot of the PS4 holdouts. Like I don't know. And I think that's a big market that they need to try to capture. And that's what Canis is for. And we've talked about Canis a ton. Like Canis may be what they need to do in the short term if the RAM crisis goes on for a lot longer than like for a long time, is like they need to shift some of their production to the whatever Canis is, or like we've discussed before, like putting it into more products than just a handheld, like revival of like the Vita TV, like something like that. Okay, but yeah, like this idea that they would cut down their main thing that's going to be attracting people from the PS5 and PS5 Pro makes no sense.
Right. The one thing I could see, and I say could see, I don't think it's going to happen at all, is like, all right, so they somehow have a crystal ball. Because we have to be clear about this. When we say something like they don't expect RAM prices to go down for a while, that's a big assumption to assume nothing will change over the next 5 years. And you'll feel like an idiot if they do. But let's say they somehow think they have a crystal ball that prices will never go down until 2031 on RAM, which I do not think is what's going to happen, by the way, everybody. They continue to build out more capacity, these companies, for making more RAM at a record pace. And I just, you're seeing the early signs of the AI bubbles going, like starting to deflate a bit here, or it could soon. Anyways, though, like then you go to 20 gigabytes, and I don't know if you could make the 192-bit bus for like I like, because I'm trying to think, like maybe they could do 18 gigabytes for the handle. Like if you did 18 and 20, and then you're like, and this is going to allow us to make it $550 and $500 for the handheld, and we're just not going to do a Pro. This is going to be a 5-year blitz generation where we just make everyone from PS4 upgrade. We build the groundwork for AI, and then we have a new full generation come out once RAM is cheaper. Who knows? Maybe they could consider that. But these ideas of just cutting down the die they spent like tens of millions, if not $100 million on, that makes no sense. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this. Just guys, their sales are falling apart. Everyone I talk to in the industry thinks that RAM, and I'll probably actually have a full report on this in a couple weeks. I'm talking to some people behind the scenes that are trying to get me more information, but like people think the RAM prices will start to go down very end of this year or early next year. And that's still months before Sony will make the decision. And if Sony sees that it's just steadily going down, what they're going to do is go, all right, we're going to take a $100 loss on a $600 console. And then you know what we're going to do? We're just going to wait, and it will be profitable in a year or two, and we will have won the generation. I think that's what they will decide.
Yeah, and just remember, this is going to be a console that probably sells like around 100 million units, exists for 10 to 15 years. Like this isn't like some short-term product that they only sell for a year or two. Like, I don't know, something that gets refreshed every year. Like, this is a very long-term investment that Sony has made into designing these things that they expect will be, like you said, driving the company for the next decade plus.
And, you know, who knows if RAM prices start to drastically go down next year, maybe they'll go back to what I believe was the original plan, which was a 36 gigabyte handheld and a 40 gigabyte home console that have almost the same amount of RAM for easy development and easily give developers more to work with. And they just go, yeah, we're going to lose $100 for the first year. And we're going to, I mean, imagine if Xbox launches a 36 gigabyte Helix and then PlayStation launches a 40 gigabyte, like, just right, boom. Now all of a sudden they have the cheaper console that's not even really weaker because it has some capabilities the other way. Like you could see them making that play to win the gen that they pay now to pay like extra now to pay dividends later. Like you could see them making that decision. So I would also say like to the people like, oh, it's going to be 20 gigabytes or something. It's like, guys, I think it's more likely it's 30 than 30 gigabytes is the plurality. I don't even think that's locked in. I think there's still a chance they could go with 40 gigabytes. I mean, and to anyone who thinks that's unlikely, the PS4 until like, I don't know, 8 months before launch, maybe 6, was going to have 4 gigabytes of RAM. And Randy Pitchford, yes, the one that made everyone annoyed on Twitter about Borderlands 4, Randy Pitchford famously told Mark Cerny, if you just give it 8, you'll win. And last minute, they took a bigger loss than expected on the PS4, clamshelled the memory on a design that they weren't planning to do that with, and they crushed it in performance. That was a last minute decision. They've done this before. So who knows? Maybe last minute they'll change it to 40 gigabytes. I don't think we should be assuming it's 30 or less. It's just probably 30. Could be 40. I guess if World War III happens, 20, but I just still don't really see it, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Jensen Wang writes in, boy, is he dominating this episode. As we learned in Die Shrink 177, the weight of a console directly correlates to performance. Doesn't that mean that Sony should scrap any home console plans and just launch a PS6 and PS6 Pro, nothing being dockable? If it's dockable, then it won't have as much performance because it'll weigh less. So this is referencing a tweet where someone was saying the handheld can't be as powerful or faster than a PS5 because it weighs less than a PS5.
You know, I was thinking about this. The computer, like on the Saturn V rockets, weighs way more than my cell phone. So
it's faster.
It must have been fast. Well, it was faster, I guess, technically, because it was going like 17,000 miles per hour.
That's true.
Ooh, wait, maybe that's a new metric. Is how fast? How fast is it going?
Yeah. Well. But yeah, so I'm not going to really touch on this one seriously. I just use this as a chance to plug. There's a whole 1 hour Die Shrink going through the claims that we think make no sense and the claims that we think actually could happen and what Sony could do with RAM supply and such on Die Shrink. So join the Die Shrink, everybody. Join it at even the $2 tier. I think I will probably make this one of the $1 tier monthly releases as well. So support us on Patreon. If you want more talk about the specs of the next gen consoles, you got a whole other hour for you if you join us there. And besides that, let us now get to the wrap up. These are the stories that we think deserve a mention, but don't deserve a full conversation. A lot of them this week. AMD reaches 46% of server CPU revenue, meaning that probably before the end of the year, they will overtake Intel.
Yeah, I don't have much to say on that other than that's big. And I mean, that's going to be like a years long trend that I don't know how Intel escapes from.
We'll see. I think Intel's looking okay in laptop, but in server, it still just seems like AMD is going to dominate with Zen 6 and 7. We'll see. Arc Pro B70 gets tested in games, and yeah, it's like a 5060 Ti that cost as much as a 5080 to make or something. This is why, everybody, they did not release this to gamers. And I saw some really boneheaded takes on this thing where people are like, look at how great this would have been. It beats the 5060 Ti sometimes. Well, using like how much? It's a 256-bit bus versus a 128. By using how much more energy? This thing would have cost like $600 or would have been sold at cost at $500. This is why they didn't launch it. It was incapable of doing well.
This is enthusiast gaming prices, Tom, which is probably what they meant when they said enthusiast level graphics cards.
You know what? I will also add this one here. I forgot to add it to the notes, but it's in a similar vein of conversation, which was I saw this also pop up over the weekend that the Core Ultra 7 270K was reportedly too good, and that's why Intel scrapped the 290K Plus, because the 290K was only 2% faster and wouldn't make sense. Bullshit. How the do you explain the 14900KS? No, they would have launched this if they could charge anything for it. The problem is the 270K Plus isn't dominating sales even at like whatever it is, $350, $300. This would have had to have been $400, and it costs more to make than the $900 9950 X3D2 that would destroy it. That's why it didn't come out, because they would have wanted to have charged $700, and they know they couldn't have.
Oh yeah, like let's not pretend and now AMD, Intel and AMD are no stranger to like releasing these Halo products that are marginally better than what they get. Like marginally might be putting it too much. Negligibly better for way more money and way more power usage. That's like the stupid CPU drag racing that those top end products kind of turn into sometimes, especially the KS models that Intel puts out.
Apparently Apple's new AirPods are going to have cameras on them for AI. So if you say something into Siri, which by the way, they should just ditch Siri. I don't know if they have yet, but that's kind of a prediction I have, is eventually they're just going to get rid of Siri because Siri just doesn't work. But having little tiny cameras on the AirPods, so that if you say, I think I see something, there's always a camera telling you, or able to see what you're looking at and get context for the response.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know. I think it's interesting.
I doubt it'll add much to the cost of it, I guess, because I'm assuming it'll be some cheap ass cameras, but
they already charge like $900,
yeah,
$300, $900, getting tired, $300 for these things.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know. More AI features, I guess. Woo.
Apple and Intel reach a deal. Again, I don't have much to say about this. That's why I didn't get a full story. It almost did, though, because this is actually huge that Apple might go with Intel for some of their manufacturing. Although from what I've read, we shouldn't assume how much of the volume it is just yet.
Yeah, I mean, given the current geopolitical situation we're in, it makes sense that they would want to bring some of their manufacturing home.
Yeah. That's how we bring the jobs home. We make it so the rest of the world isn't safe. Mission accomplished.
We did it.
Samsung is having some pretty big issues here, actually. This was added last minute, but because I realized I didn't include something that a lot of people are talking about, which is that Samsung is starting to shut down chip production lines because of worker strikes. And it's because Samsung pays them like shit. So I don't know what to say. That's not good for the market, but I know in South Korea they really could. And I know, like, I've spoken with people here in the US in the past year that work for Samsung, even in the US, and it's like they expect you to work very hard. He said they pay you well in the US though, but they expect you to work crazy hard. So if you're not paid as well in South Korea, I could see why they'd be pissed.
Well, yeah, and what was this I heard about this on too, where like it sounds like just based on the bonus structure that they have, Samsung is like trying to go back a little bit on their on the bonus structure, where they demand, where I believe they're trying to do a one-time bonus that's a pretty huge payout of like 300,000. But the bonuses that they're owed is based off of the operating profit of Samsung, which that's just way below it. So they're like, all right, you, we're going to go on strike then. So
wait, what's going on? Like they're not getting the bonus?
They're not. Samsung is trying to argue or is trying to offer a lower bonus than they should be owed based on like the bonus structure that exists at Samsung. Because
so just last minute they said, because they made
it's
so
a lot of money.
Well, tough shit. That's if you work at Nvidia, you get $1 million bonus that year if you're an engineer. Congrats, and you probably want to keep working at Nvidia, huh?
Yeah, or you can do this.
So they're like, well, because we've made so much money, you're going to get half as much, but it's still more than you expected, and they're hoping to get away with that.
Yeah.
Nah, screw that. That's why you work so hard at these companies, because you know you'll get that. No.
Yeah.
When is enough for some of these people? AMD announces MI350P. I have to say, I haven't dug through the numbers, but I have seen enough people online saying this is actually catching up to NVIDIA. This is actually a problem for them, at least on paper and in terms of mind share. Obviously, NVIDIA is booked out for 1,000 years until it turns out that all of those contracts are fake. But, I will say, if it actually got competitive again, AMD seems to be there, at least in terms of the hardware. There's an odd RX 9050 8GB rumor, Dan. What makes it odd is that it seems to have more cores enabled than the 9060 non-XT, but it's clocked ridiculously lower, maybe to be low profile.
Golden Rabbit Edition.
The Golden Rabbit Edition. No, what was it? The Great Radeon?
Oh, yeah. They changed
the Great Radeon Edition, not Golden Rabbit, just because they want to keep using GRE. No, but this is interesting. So I guess this would be yields that don't need to be disabled, but can't clock as high. And then they try to sell this as like a much lower power GPU. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I just immediately thought of GRE when you described it, because that's like the weirdest stuff that happened with those two.
Now, have you seen this Xperia 1.8 AI post?
What do you mean AI, Tom? I didn't look that closely at the first picture.
Really bad.
That one freaked me out. I looked at the other pictures because it's like an oversaturation filter is what these AI pictures seem to be doing. Like, I don't know. It looks bad.
Yeah, it looks a lot of. So I have nothing else to say except that you would hope Sony, would actually be betting on being the better analog company in a world where everyone's skeptical of AI.
Especially, which is weird for Sony to try to be pushing this with like their phones specifically, because I feel like the big selling point, or maybe it's just because you're the person I know with a Sony phone and this is why you bought it. I feel like the big selling point of Sony phones is their really good cameras that they tend to include on them. And just completely
most of them are just saturation. I only saw the sandwich picture. I'm now looking at the woman in the field, and I think the second picture clearly looks worse as well.
Yeah, just completely killing your phone, like one of your major selling points, by just having some like saturation filter that you call AI is insanely stupid.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why it's not a full story, because it shouldn't be, but this is hilarious. And I had to bring it up because like there was a whole day where this is what everyone was talking about in the Moore's Laws of Discord. And I had nothing to say, but this looks really stupid. I see one with Michael Jackson. A meme, not a real one. You guys can connect the dots on why that joke works. There's also a PS5 player count widget coming. Again, don't have much to say, but that will be interesting to be able to compare Steam and PlayStation player counts. And actually, this could just be a marketing move by Sony. It's actually, we'll see how this plays out. But like, let's say there's Helldivers 2. Let me see. Can I just do this now? Helldivers 2 Steam player count. Like, let me see how many people. 27,000 are playing. This whole time, we're just like, well, who knows who's playing on PlayStation? What if Sony puts this out and it's like 100,000. Like, what if there's like game after game where they're like Battlefield 6 on Steam, whatever it is, 50,000, PlayStation 300. This is a way for Sony to show devs, are you sure you don't want to put your game on PlayStation?
Yeah.
You know, so it'll be fun to be able to compare that. There's a story here, Sony undecided on pricing so far, and people are acting like this means it's in trouble. A month ago, I would have used this to prove my point that I've been making, that they haven't made the decision yet, which is actually good news, because if they made the decision now, it would cost more. Again, the doomerism. Oh yeah, Sony is going forward with an AI tool package to hopefully help devs make games faster. Again, I think further evidence that they are maybe going to try to do the not dumb version of DLSS 5, which is instead of vendor locking and requiring two 5090s to make the game look worse, what you're going to do is use AI to make assets look better in a streamlined way that saves devs time. And this will be a standard package for PlayStation developers. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's going to happen, and that's very obviously like a more coherent, I guess, use of AI rather than just AI slot filters, because our graphics cards have this hardware that can run AI models well.
And then Insider Gaming has been able to independently verify that GTA 6 pre-order leak from Best Buy is legitimate. This comes from Tom Henderson on Twitter. So I guess there you go. There's a lot of evidence growing that as much as we keep joking about it, it's coming out this year, I think. GTA 6 is coming out this year.
I really hope so, because I don't want another delay of that game. I want to play it.
Yeah.
And we should have been playing it already, if I'm remembering the original release.
Yeah, we should have been by now, I believe. All right, two final questions. I'm getting tired. Let's just get through this. Let's just get through this stuff. Let's just get through it. Thanks for your questions, guys. Carmen Cry writes in, is Steam Machine being delayed not because of memory, but because of delays to Half-Life 3, the launch title of the console? I don't know. Have you followed if those rumors are accurate at all? I have no clue.
No, I mean, I also don't know. I know they like pushing technology, but I really just don't feel, or like they like doing a showcase of like new tech for their video games a lot of the time, but I just don't see the Steam Machine as being that really. So I don't know why there would be a big push for like a Half-Life 3 with the Steam Machine. It doesn't make sense. Like their whatever they call their VR device, I can't remember right now. Source, or having
isn't it Steam Frame?
Yeah, having Half-Life come out with that made a lot of sense, very in line with like what they did in the past. But the Steam Machine, I don't know. It's a pretty basic box. I don't know why that would be like the big push they would have for Half-Life 3 rather than, I don't know, some very new technology that they want to put out and show off.
I'm reading on here to see if I think these people are credible. Most evidence is that these people are credible, and they're alleging, like Steam community leakers with a track record are alleging the campaign's done and being play tested and polished. So I don't know. I doubt that's why because they said they were going to launch this early 26 anyway. So I think it's delayed because they didn't realize you needed to buy RAM to build a console. Jensen Wing writes in, why should GameStop think small with eBay? Why not offer half stock and half cash to buy some company that's actually valuable like TSMC? Yeah, why not go for TSMC, GameStop, if you think you can buy eBay? I just included this because we've never talked about it online. I mean, it's hilarious that GameStop tried to buy eBay, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't. You told me that, and I was like, how is that possible?
And it turns out they actually have a mountain of cash because they're a meme stock. And then they were going to try to bring in like investors and a lot of debt or something. And then actually my understanding is because this was a discussion, a serious one on the Prof G Markets podcast I listen to every weekday. And one of the guests they had on that was kind of an expert on the situation said, there was a snowball's chance in hell this could have happened. But then the GameStop CEO went into these serious interviews and made a complete ass out of himself with horrible answers and said, well, then now it's not happening. And of course, all the GameStop meme stonks people loved how he acted like he doesn't even care. Look at him. He
doesn't even give a shit. He's a CEO. Why would he care about looking professional or good?
Yeah. Like that was what he was playing to, but like they said after the first interview, in the morning after they announced the bid, it was already done, because anyone who saw that was like, we're not working with this freaking guy.
Yeah. Good for him.
But yes, that was very funny. All right, Dan, I am tired. This was another fairly girthy episode, if I may say so myself.
You may not.
I thought you might say that. But yeah, I don't know. Let me do the rundown of all the stuff. Everybody, please make sure that you like the video, share the video, ring the bell button after you subscribe to Moore's Law is Dead on YouTube. Comment down below. All of that helps the channel a ton. Also, click on the links to the sponsors and get something from those sponsors if you would like their products. And then finally, support Moore's Law is Dead on Patreon. Like I said, there's a new 1 hour die shrink out looking at rumors about specs and strategy with the PlayStation 6 and Xbox Helix. A whole other hour of that conversation is there if you would like it. We do multiple die shrinks a month. Even the lowest tier gets access to a new die shrink every month and the ability to ask us questions. I've actually got several guests coming up. Yes, I am, I guess, going to have Ed Zitron on, which everyone is saying I should have on. I don't know if it'll be the next episode, but he's already agreed to. Vex has already agreed to. Ryan, I have to say his name. I can't name two other guests and then be like Ryan, whatever his name is. Ryan Benecki is also looking to come on. He has a very large PlayStation channel as well. We have a lot of crossover fans. So if you want to ask these guys questions, you can at the lowest tier on Patreon. We cannot do this without our fans there. And otherwise, everybody, Dan, any final words?
Height points.
Height
Something
points. Dan remembered. If you're on mobile, give us height points. And of course,
you're welcome for reminding you of that, Tom.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a good week, everybody.
Goodbye.
This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarked by me, the creator, Tom. However, Moore's Law is Dead is much more than just one man. It is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance also provided by Carbon Cry and Carrie No Sugata. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com. On the About Support page, in the event you want to hire me for consulting work, or hire Gerard for audio work, Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or are interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carrie No Sugata as well, you can find all of our information there. You can also find our long-term sponsors there and show them some love for helping make this work possible. Additionally, if you are a fan and would like to mail Moore's Law is Dead some love in a letter or with hardware donations, please mail parcels to Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee 37206. And speaking of fans, patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content possible. Every month, and every day actually, depending on the person, me, Gerard, Dan, Jean-Philippe, and more are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of entertaining content and investigative journalism that aims to be as independent as possible from outside influence. Only direct funding from fans can make this possible in the modern era. And so if you have any extra money every month, even just $1 or $2, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. All members of the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon, even down to the $1.28 128-bit tier, get access to a catalog of dozens of essential die shrink episodes and the ability to ask guest questions ahead of Broken Silicon recordings. Additionally, higher tiers get access to the entire catalog of hundreds of episodes of die shrinks, and these include exclusive interviews with game devs and other guests, behind the scenes looks at Moore's Law is Dead leaks, and more niche coverage of subjects that really only the biggest gaming dorks like me and you would care about. They would not profit on YouTube, but they don't have to profit on Patreon. And so if you're interested in that, you can get access to all of that stuff and even more at higher tiers, like ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask free questions in Loose Ends live streams ahead of recordings, thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts, and access to the Discord with thousands of fans there who would love to discuss gaming hardware with you. I am one of them. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us, please just share Moore's Law's Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family and on social media and Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. All of that stuff does help a ton as well. But as I said, this podcast would not be possible without its patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now is the time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 1024-bit HBM3 or higher supporter levels:
Brad Medlin, Z-Jits, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Deke, and Aaron Close, Jan Rauner, MJB1, Daniel High, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jem Ferrier, Velcom Alev, Jensen Wang, Sarcastro, Chris Rich, Evan Dingle, Hal Booma, Shredbird, Sammy Malas, Chris Thenos, Jonathan, Tommy, Matthew Cassels, Jake Dude 23, Jake Martin, Zlicky, Winwing, Gamers Unite, Ian Clifford, Meat and Pork, Tim Rod, Travis Gooding, Zoot Suit Taylor, Mads, Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, Amiable Chief, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Dan M, 1988, I Should, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Hexapuma, Teak Autumn, Little Germany, Windstar, James I. Raider, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, Mac Daffy, Justin Bustle, Austin Haggerty, Joe Foot, Brian Wright, Brian Scanlon, Hardland, Slushball, Jansen Angima, The Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, Bing Bong 3, John Swin, Solarized 80, Kikum, Sprutnik, Brian P, Cornster 671, Penta Winta, Omega Doge, Huger Ander Kiwi, Smash Axley, Mr. Tiger, John Wick Boomstick, Penguins of AI, Porcelain Oats, Dominic Passeri, Karim El Masri, Rahil, Chi Bulls, Manus Radkusis, Kevin Koontz, AAI Soldier 789, Jonathan Harris, Bespoke EP, Kainush Kagani, Johnny Trans, Fred Burger, Zabir Ahmed, RKO, Dudester, Henry Day, John Tiberius, America, Roadkill Dog, OMG Clover, Michael Gerner, and Dreesen. And of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.